Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show. Broadcast live every week to you at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. I'm your host, Mark Devlin. I'm here tonight with co-hosts Mary Devlin and David Griffiths. We have a great show for you tonight. What are we going to be talking about, Mary?
Well, tonight we have a specially recorded interview with our friend Jamie Blackett, who was the former leader of the Alliance for Unity Party. And this week he was one of the Royal Company of Archers who provided the guard to King Charles at the Royal Accession Proclamation in Edinburgh on Sunday.
David.
Wonderful. And I, tonight, will be asking, what is it that's made Scottish nationalists and some English commentators fall in love with free speech?
And tonight we will be reviewing the sad events of the past week, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, accession of Charles III, and looking to the monarchy's future in Scotland. All that and much more, plus Zoomer of the Week, will be coming to you in just a few seconds. If I can find the titles. Okay, there we go. Right, well, welcome back to the Majority Show and Scotland's number one anti-nationalist show. And as always, we start with a huge shout out to our donors who made this show possible. It's you, people there, put in your funds to help set it up and to pay for running costs. If you'd like to support the show, please donate. You just go to our website, click the donate button, and you can put some cash in there. Everything very big or small helps. And helps our fight against nationalism in Scotland.
We'd also like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and United Against Separation for supporting the podcast by letting us broadcast directly to their Facebook pages, many of you whom are now watching. Thank you.
And please remember to subscribe on YouTube for alerts, because once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we will get a lot more exposure on YouTube's precious algorithm. So we're almost at 500 subscribers now, so please hit that button, guys.
And wherever you are, please like, share, comment, tell your friends. Extend our reach at the click of a button.
Coming up, we will be reviewing this week's sad events, the passing of Her Majesty the Queen, and examining the monarchy's future role in Scotland. We also have an interview with Jamie Blackett, and David will be talking about Scotland's lack of free speech. Yeah, basically lack of free speech. Exactly. So we're back in just a second. Where we got? Some Majority news. You might have noticed that Niall isn't here. He's got some new commitments on a Wednesday and is not able to co-host the show from now on. So we're very sad about that. But he remains a friend of the show, and we hope we can have him on from time to time to talk about the subject of SNP sex pestry, which is his favourite. So for now, the lovely Mary will be stepping into his shoes as a full-time co-host.
Thank you, Mark. As you know, I handle all the comments, so as well as co-hosting tonight, I'll be trying to do two jobs until we find someone who can help with the comments. If that's something you might be interested in, or you have any online moderation experience, please send us a note. We could really do with your help. And as always, the good comments will be read out on the show, but please keep your comments short, and I will try to get to as many of them as I can. Thanks.
Right, now on with the show. We were shocked to hear, like all of you, I guess, of the Queen's death last Thursday. What started out as notes being passed around in Parliament soon became apparent as one of the biggest events in modern history. Since then, we've seen the British state in all its glory as the country pays its respects and tributes to the Queen, who, whatever your degree of support for the monarchy, performed her duties with grace, dignity, and neutrality. We've also seen our new King Charles III take on the beginning of his role, while of course mourning for his mother. This must be quite a difficult situation to deal with. It's bad enough in best of times if a family member dies, but having to do a whole bunch of official duties at the same time cannot be easy. So anyway, tonight we're going to talk about various issues relating to our new UK. First being is, can Charles unite the country? What do you think about that, Mary?
Yes, I think he can. I think people outside of Scotland are probably very surprised to see the huge crowds that turned out to pay their respects to our Queen. And I think that people so far have been impressed by Charles' connection with the people in their shared grief. People have seemed to have warmed to him and Camilla. In my opinion, I think he's looking quite kingly with Camilla by his side as Queen Consort. He's looking the part. And I think everyone's very impressed by his stamina. Now, he is 73 years old, when many people would be putting their feet up. He's been touring the country. He's been in Scotland back and forth with England. He's been over to Northern Ireland. He's been all over the country, connecting with people, and at the same time being present for every official duty he's had to undertake, in whether it was in London, Balmoral, wherever. He's just lost his mother and taken on an incredible responsibility in front of the whole world. And he looks to me like he's claimed the title and that he will live up to it. I mean, we'll see. And also, we all know that how much the Queen loves Scotland. But Charles loves Scotland too. And as Duke of Rothesay, he spent a lot of time in Scotland. He's been here a lot at many, many events. And I think he would in the future. What do you guys think?
Well, I will say I've always been fearful of the day that Charles finally became monarch, simply because he's been set an almost impossibly high bar. His mother, of course, was quite simply the most important female figure of the 20th century and beyond. She was a much-loved, hugely respected figure, literally across the globe, and deservedly so. She was and she did an amazing job as monarch. Now, of course, Charles is an incredibly difficult job, but he has started very, very well. And it's great to see he has the goodwill of the UK public behind him. And I'm massively heartened by the reaction all across Scotland to the Queen's passing and to Charles's ascension. And one rather slight note, but is worth saying anyway, he is genuinely Charles III of the United Kingdom, because, of course, his predecessor many years back, Charles I, was king of both Scotland and England. He was born in Dunfermline, in fact. So it's great that you won't be able to have snidey Republicans saying, "Oh, he's not really the first queen of the third queen, king of Scotland." It doesn't apply.
It's so tiresome, isn't it? It's very tiresome.
Completely. So no, it's great start. He's made a terrific start, and we're all right behind him.
Well, I think there was low expectations. There was this whole theme of let's just skip Charles and get on to William and Kate.
Yes.
And because they seem nice, and Charles has always seemed to be a little bit of an interferer, perhaps, and so on. But I think that it's when these things actually happen, things become different. People have a certain idea of the way they might like to do things, and there's a reality of how these constitutional changes are actually happen. And I think people have settled into the idea of Charles being king pretty fast, actually, surprisingly so. I think. Now, what about some other things here? I think, of course, we're wanting to hear your comments, and some of them have already been shown on the screen. So that is great. Thank you very much for putting those in. Now, when Prime Minister Harold Macmillan was asked what was the greatest challenge for any statesman, he replied, "Events, dear boy, events." And now it seems that events have overtaken Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon has basically over the past 2 weeks has to deal with a new Prime Minister and has had to deal with a new king as well,
Yep.
and had to go through all these things to do with the British state. So, for example, or the UK state, whatever you want to call it. Let's have a look at this one here.
Dimension to this,
and that was indeed Alistair Jack, the Secretary of State for Scotland, adding his signature now.
And here she is signing a book.
Nicola Sturgeon. And Brandon Lewis has already added his signature to the document. You can hear the bands outside. And you can
just imagine what they're thinking here. Now look at this guy up at the top here. He's like, "Oh, that's it. That's the referendum screwed up now."
Just outside these windows.
Yes. Like, right.
Where the new king will be proclaimed publicly.
So, Mary, there you are. Okay, well, any thoughts on what how Nicola's been dealing with it?
I mean, to me, sorry, Mary, I was going to say she's shown both sides of her personality as always. It's the dual nationalist trait of going through the paying lip service to being supportive, but secretly thinking, okay, how can we use this to our advantage? You can tell that's what she's thinking. There's no doubt. So, I mean, a lot of people have said she's been statesmanlike and all the rest of it. I don't listen to her speeches. I'm not interested in what she says, to be honest. So, as far as I'm concerned, she will see this just as a minor blip, something to overcome. And she will unquestionably be looking for ways to leverage it to further the cause of independence.
Well, how much though can she leverage it? I think that's the thing you said there. She's trying to use it to her advantage, but what advantage is there really?
Right,
it's a real challenge for her, basically, when you see that the conflict between her party. We'll come on to this a little bit later. Conflict between what her party says and what the head people or the leadership of the party says. Mary, sorry, did you have anything on that?
Well, no, I agree with David. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Nicola is in opportunistic mode as always.
100%.
So I think that's agreeing with you, David. I think she's been keeping her head down and just doing what she has to do and I think she's kind of trying to be seen as little as possible.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that's playing out with the Nats, of course. What do you think about that?
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, I would imagine some of them will be furious, but they will be desperately trying to bite their tongues right now not to say too much to cause offence, because this is not a time really, Mark's right, it's very difficult for people who are nationalists and who want to do away with the monarchy to come across as anything other than incredibly embittered and frankly classless at this time. So yeah, I think you're right. I think they will be saying as little as they can get away with saying right now.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a bit of a disaster for them, really. To be honest, as we say, events are getting in their way all the time. Liz Truss was an event. They wanted rid of Boris so hard, they ended up getting Liz Truss, and Liz Truss is going to give them a doing by the looks of it. And then the Queen dies, and many people have said on social media that she chose to die in Scotland. Of course, it was her favourite place in the world, but the symbolic, symbolism of that is incredibly powerful. We've had pictures of Scotland and Scottish life, traditional life, royal life, ordinary people's lives, played out all across the world. I had a friend of mine who lives in California, and she came onto a Facebook chat, says, "Oh, what's going on over there? I've been seeing Scotland on the TV. It looks beautiful, and look at all those people. How they must love the Queen, and how's people feeling about their new king and so on?" And asking all these questions. It was really very interesting, like to be the centre of attention. And of course, we all saw those many crowds that people came to make their respects. David, what do you think of those?
Yeah, quite right. I mean, the fact that Scotland has never looked better, frankly. It's been glorious weather for the last few days, which is great for optics, as they say. The fact that people across Scotland have shown such genuine warmth and love and respect, I think I'm so enthused by the fact that on a worldwide stage, Scotland looks dignified. The people of Scotland look like they have genuine admiration and respect and love for this wonderful monarch. And I think it's just been terrific for cementing the bonds, which we all know were in place. And I think it's shown up the paucity of the arguments that the nationalists have, which pretty much are based on, oh yeah, we're remote from England, they don't understand us, and all this heraldry and all the rest of it, the monarchy and the wealth. Absolute nonsense. Scotland is every bit as much part of the whole pageantry of the monarch as England is, because the Queen was the Queen, the monarch of the United Kingdom. Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and events have indeed shown that to be the case. And I think it's been desperately sad, but it's been in the same to a great extent. It's been wonderful to witness also. Genuinely.
Yeah, maybe have you got something?
Yeah, we've got a comment here. The silent majority came out in force
Yeah.
in Scotland to pay their condolences. True loyal Scots who love the monarchy and the Union.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're so used to seeing these. Well, to be honest, they're fairly sparsely attended marches by the saltire-clad people and the Jacobite hats and all this type of stuff.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like, even when you see any picture about in the newspaper, you see a picture illustrating an article about the debate between Scottish independence. It almost always has picture of a nationalist march because there's lots of flags and stuff like
That's
that,
right.
right? And the picture editors like stuff like that. But so we don't see that. There's a kind of censorship in a way, a subtle censorship of that, and also people. I think we don't want to go out and do those type of marches. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who is for to remain in the UK as a monarchist. Let's make that clear. And many people are ambivalent about the monarchy, and that's fine as well. But it does show that there's a different type of support for the UK in Scotland, and that's something that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah.
And Heavenly Malbec is saying, it made you proud to be Scottish, and the Nats often make that hard as they try to claim they are true Scots.
Indeed. A great comment here from Anne Smith talking about the Queen Mother and the fact that the Queen's mum was Scottish. And there's I don't know if you know the famous quote, the Queen Mother was on a state visit to South Africa one time, and some South African dignitary said to her, "Oh, we feel very embittered in South Africa because of the mess that England has made of looking after us." And the Queen Mother said, "Yes, I know what you mean. We feel exactly the same way in Scotland." I thought, what a great quote, So it was.
Was the Queen Mum a nationalist as well?
No, it was more to stress the fact that she considered herself Scottish.
Scottish.
Yeah.
She is Scottish. She was Scottish.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
as they said on several shows, the Queen was more Scottish than she was English, and that's very true. If you look at her descendancy, absolutely true.
Right, let's turn. Go ahead.
Indeed, it's been very sad, but very moving and very dignified, and it's been quite a few days for us all, guys.
Well, talking about sad, moving, and dignified, let's not apply that to the nationalists who have been on the TV trying to tell us that they really like the monarchy, which just seems a little bit strange. So let's see if I can get a clip up here with what have we got first of all. Let me see. We have Angus Robertson. What about this one? Oh yes, okay, right, okay. We'll start this wee bit in.
If he were to become independent eventually, would he, the king, be your head of state?
Indeed, as he is of Canada and of Australia and New Zealand and elsewhere in the Commonwealth. So I mean, I don't think that's a huge question. Obviously, the constitutional future of Scotland is, but I mean, just going back
that continuity is very important as well, isn't it, for you, in order to reassure people if you were to become independent?
Well, indeed, and I mean, what we're talking about is moving power from Westminster to the Scottish Parliament and not changing our head of state. But these are things that are going to be discussed in time. We're going to have a referendum. We're going to make up our minds about all of this. Today is a day where
when the people of Scotland saying goodbye, so I cut that off a little bit early, but. Well, first of all, they're not going to get a referendum. But secondly, in any case, if they did get a referendum, we all know that the majority of nationalists are actually against the monarchy. That's a main reason that they're in the SNP, because they think they can get away from the Queen or whoever it is, the monarchy, whatever it is. So there's no surprise to that. And I'll play a clip actually later from Humza Yousaf actually saying that. So the question here is, why are they saying this now? Basically, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They would say they want the only reason they're saying this, of course, is to get votes. They want people to believe that they'll keep the monarchy so that they can vote for them. And then thinking, oh, we'll keep the monarchy. And then as soon as they get independence, they will abandon the monarchy right away. Of course, why would anyone want to get independence and then have to swear allegiance to an English king? It's nonsense, talking from their perspective, right? So, I mean, it just seems to be ridiculous, I think, and somewhat mendacious, I think, because basically it's a bait and switch. They're a bit. It's one thing to go out and ask for votes for something. Say, all right, we're going to rejoin Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we're going to do. Right, fine. But it's another thing to say we're going to keep the monarchy, and then know that you're not going to keep the monarchy.
Right.
That's really a different thing altogether. I think that's really not correct.
Yeah, right, yeah. So much of what they say, and I'll touch on this shortly, so much of what they say is just complete fiction. We know that, and it's the reason they say it is just to try and soften the blow and maybe attract people who might be ambivalent on it. So yeah, we'll come on to that shortly, but you're quite right, Mark. That is what they're doing. They're stating untruths. It's as simple as that.
And we have a comment here. Mr. Tommy Boy 75 is saying, at least the vile Greens are honest about their hatred,
True.
which is a thing I wanted to speak about, which is, the Greens, because as we know, the SNP are shored up by the Greens and they need their support to get enough seats to form a government.
Yeah.
And this week, their leader, Patrick Harvie, who's an odious little cretin, and I'll be talking a lot more about him later for his insulting speech, which was the embarrassment of Scotland this week.
Yeah.
But he's never hid his fervour for republicanism. Last year, he criticised the monarchy by claiming that it would hold back an independent Scotland.
Yeah.
And if you remember, his MSPs walked out of a Platinum Jubilee debate at Holyrood earlier this year. So, I mean, Patrick Harvie is obviously one of the ministers in the government. So he has made his views very clear and continues to do so. So I don't know how Nicola Sturgeon would deal with that.
Well, Nicola's two-faced. We saw this. Here's an example. A reminder that Nicola Sturgeon stopped Scottish school kids getting this book. They stopped the Platinum Jubilee book for the Queen Elizabeth. Then she went down, of course, in a nice jolly to the actual Platinum Jubilee celebration itself. And now she's fully participating in the part. At least some politicians, like maybe Jeremy Corbyn or whatever, they turn their back and no, I'm not participating in that. But she's quite happy to take both parts of the whole thing. And to try and deceive her voters, just a constant deception of her own voters. And, this is a thing, she deceives them in the idea that there's going to be a referendum. It's just constant. It's not. There's no referendum. There's no chance of a referendum. Even if there was a referendum, they've already said they're only going for an advisory referendum. And even if they actually got that, everyone knows that the pro-UK side would boycott it. So there's nothing there. In fact, actually nationalists should boycott it as well because it's pointless. Anyway, so it's a party. They've got a long history of this. Even after Sturgeon said a vote for her was not a vote for independence, she immediately turned around and called it a mandate for independence. Exactly. And then she's been using Remain voters, as a proxy. 60% of Scotland didn't vote for Brexit. But a lot of those people didn't vote for the SNP either. They hate the SNP. And 30% of the SNP didn't even vote for Brexit. It's ridiculous nonsense.
Absolutely right, indeed. And this I find this whole debate just ludicrous. The idea that people are saying, Angus, tell us, when Scotland's independent, will you still have the Queen as your monarch? Oh, yes, we will. Or the King as your monarch. Listen, okay, let's just get real here. Effie Dean's, her blog today is genuinely essential reading, guys, because as she said, these discussions are all academic. It would not be in the SNP or Scottish Government's gift to decide if Scotland could retain the monarchy following independence, because as she points out, Queen Elizabeth, just like every monarch since 1603, has been the monarch of the United Kingdom, which means an independent Scotland wouldn't get to decide if Charles would become its king because Scotland is not a monarchy. Scotland hasn't been a monarchy since 1603. The UK is the monarchy, and Charles, just like his mother, and just like every monarch since 1603, is the king or monarch of the United Kingdom. So all this stuff about, oh yes, if we were independent, we'd keep the Queen, just like we'd keep the pound, and we'd keep our entitlement to UK state pensions, all SNP government spin, PR pipe dreams. None of these things can or will happen if Scotland becomes independent, because if Scotland becomes independent, there is no United Kingdom anymore, and Scotland most certainly will not be a monarchy. So it's very important that people understand this. The SNP are quite simply lying to them. Robertson,
there's it's Swinney as well,
Yep.
Just the same thing. And it goes on. But then we actually talk to, I don't know what that noise is. Whenever here's an actual tweet from an actual what are they called, nationalist. He says, if Scotland were to become independent again, why would we keep the monarchy? For me, it's like putting an emblem of Britain around our necks. I know it might appease some voters, but the monarchy is a relic of the past, and independent Scotland is the future. Well, it's the past, actually. In fact, it's 2014 all over again. So, that's, that's just some examples there.
Yes, indeed.
There's also, the SNP's own newspaper, The National, which is always spouting its anti-monarchy diarrhea,
Yep.
and always printing their hate for the monarchy, including this week when every newspaper in the UK was publishing stories related to the grief and the mood of the nation, losing the Queen. The National continued to disgustingly printed calls for the monarchy to be abolished in Scotland. So this is the SNP's own newspaper that primarily exists to agitate for breaking up the UK and for abolishing the monarchy. So I really don't think the monarchy would last too long under an SNP.
No, I mean, we've got the images here. This is the first one on this side. Has the UK gone mad? Anti-monarchy, you better watch out. That's the thing. That was 2 days ago. And then yesterday they had this article, no room for this circus in a modern democracy. Now, these people, it shows this, tries to make out that these apparently Welsh Guards, soldiers who defend our country and who serve our country are a circus. They're in a circus. They're clowns. And so we have, as many of our followers may know, we have an ongoing petition against NewsQuest. Here it is here. Stop publishing the National's anti-English hate in Scotland and stop just behaving. This, I think it just comes down to the fact that it's not a free speech issue. Someone asked me this today and said, well, you try to get a newspaper closed down. That's not right. Look, if you're an anti-English bigot, you get together with your pals and, make your own newspaper. Right. A company like NewsQuest and Gannett, its US owners, should not be publishing anti-English hate. And we, over the next few weeks, we will be stepping up our campaign against them. We're going to embarrass them so much that they will close this thing down. And if you want to be part of that, get to their petition right now. You can go to it, just go to change.org and put in NewsQuest, or you can follow it on Twitter or Facebook. We've got lots of links to it there. Please join that and be part of an action that actually gets rid of hate in Scotland. It's really disgusting.
Well said.
Agreed.
Right, so, okay, that all said, we are going to go into the next segment, which is going to be an interview I did earlier with Jamie Blackett, who was part of the company, the King's Guard, the Royal Company of Archers, and who were part of the Royal Accession Proclamation. It'll take me a second to get this up here. Where is it? Okay, there we go. And okay, open. All right. So here we go. So on the line, I have Jamie Blackett, who is a friend of the show. He's been on before as a commentator, but we were surprised and quite interested to find out that he was a participant in the Accession Proclamation ceremony held in Edinburgh just a few days ago. Hi, Jamie. How are you today?
Hi, Mark. Good to hear you down the line and see you down the line. Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Now back down to earth and the normality of farming in Dumfriesshire. Right.
Well, yes, I think that must be quite a big change from this ceremony we saw here. I saw you posted, very proud to be in parade in Edinburgh today to give 3 rousing cheers for His Majesty at the proclamation of King Charles III. God save the King. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I've been a member of the Royal Company of Archers for about 10 years. Like many archers, I'm a former serviceman. I was in the army for 20 years, and that's not necessarily the case that all archers are ex-soldiers. In fact, on parade, I was standing next to my GP, okay. A doctor, Dr. James Clerk Maxwell, who's in fact also ordained. So I was able to quip that if anything went wrong, he could treat me, and if it was terminal, he could bury me. But yes, and the Royal Company of Archers are all volunteers, and we are actually a an archery club, but we have, for really quite extraordinary historical reasons, this role as the King's bodyguard for Scotland. It stems back to the visit of George IV in 1822, when there was huge celebrations in Edinburgh.
So we've got a good picture here of you in your regalia. And do you actually have to learn to be an archer as being part of the company?
Yes, absolutely. When you first join, you're put through your paces by Scots Guards drill instructors for I think it was a day or 2 days. I can't remember.
Really?
I mean, clearly I could march and things like that before I joined, but actually the bow drill is very complicated. It's the complete opposite to sword drill or rifle drill that I was used to doing in the army, because it's all done back to front with carrying a bow in a different hand, and so the foot drill is also very different. So fortunately, every year we practice it before the Royal Garden parties at Holyrood.
Okay.
When we're on parade and other occasions, but we had very little warning of the Queen's death, so
Sure.
everybody had to immediately parade for rehearsals, and it was a crash course to get everybody up to speed.
Right. And on the actual day, did you have to do any special preparations, or how do you feel it went?
Vibe in Edinburgh from the crowd was quite extraordinary. The mood at the proclamation ceremony, this sort of mixture of still grieving for Her late Majesty, but also a real show of support for the King as the Lord Lion proclaimed his reign. 3 rousing cheers and people singing the national anthem with real fervour. And I think in a weird anthropological sense, this sort of state ceremonial is very important. It allows us to grieve, to come to terms with the new monarch, the accession, and to renew our bonds with the nation, with the monarchy. And so this sort of ritual, I think, is very important.
Yes, I think it's very interesting, people coming together. I'll show a little clip of the proclamation, just the beginning of the part we've got here. There we go.
God save the King!
So we saw many people across Scotland coming together for these events. It was quite something to see, perhaps a little bit unusual. I think many people were perhaps sceptical about whether Charles could go forward after Queen Elizabeth. And what's your feeling on that?
Well, I think this week has been quite extraordinary, and it has shown that Scotland is actually a far more traditional country in in our support for the monarchy than many politicians and people in the media perhaps thought it was. Churches being full of wanting to come and show their respects, to listen to bell ringing or sign condolence books, and I really think that actually I know that I could hear in the crowd, actually there were some people unfortunately booing at the ceremony, but I think actually that only goes to underline what a very small minority of people it is in Scotland that are against the monarchy. They really were a very, very small minority. And I think that the media have sort of painted them as extremists. There was no sort of attempt at any sort of equivalence, really. I think most of the media have accepted that the vast majority of people in Scotland have mourned the Queen and have strongly welcomed the accession of the King.
Yes, I think we often talk about the silent majority. You know, I think most of the people who are pro-UK aren't going out waving flags and shouting, dressing up and draping themselves in costumes and so on. That's not the style of the majority. Most people are there not waving flags and so on, certainly. That's our style, and that's not, because it's not visible, that doesn't mean it's not there. I think it must have been great to be part of that ceremony. We also, know that you've got your book out. How is that going?
It's going very well, thanks, Mark. Yes, it's had some very generous reviews from people in the newspapers and magazines and on Amazon, and it's selling very well. And once this period of national mourning is over, I will be resuming my book tour of going around the country talking, and I'll be appearing on the main stage at Wigton Book Festival later this month.
Well, the book is called Land of Milk and Honey, Digressions of a Rural Dissident, and it's quite entertaining. We've been working our way through it in our spare moments, and it's a good read. It's good to see. It's like an honest telling of your story over the past few years and various thoughts about life in politics and on the farm. So it's very interesting. I recommend it, highly recommended. Thank you very much, Jamie, for coming to see us today, and good luck with the book, and hopefully we'll see you again on the show fairly soon.
Thank you very much, Mark. Great to see you.
All right. Right, I think that was quite good. Jamie's always good for some comments there, with little bit different perspective. David, you're going to do this segment next about free speech.
Yes, just briefly. I won't dwell on this too much, but it's just to say that since, of course, the Queen passed, I've noticed many comments from people saying, "Oh, it's vitally important to support free speech," and this, of course, has happened since some protesters were arrested following some rather unpleasant scenes in Edinburgh. One woman holding up a placard, another guy screaming at Prince Andrew, and of course, predictably, when anything like this happens, when somebody makes a public show of criticising the royal family, you will always get Scottish nationalists and Republicans protecting the or speaking out on behalf of the protester. So of course we had Jerry Hassan doing this, saying, "Oh, this is overzealous and heavy-handed approach by Police Scotland." Yeah, whatever, Jerry. But what was a little bit more, if you like, surprising and disappointing was people like Julia Hartley-Brewer and David Davis joined in. Now, Julia, not for the first time, isn't really on top of what's happening in Scotland, because when she spoke about this placard holder being arrested, she said, "No one has a right not to be offended. What are you doing about this, Nicola Sturgeon?" What a joke. Nicola Sturgeon, the woman whose government brought in the hate crime bill. What an absolute joke. So that's Julia for you. And David Davis, much the same. So what did you think about the reaction of these guys, Mark and Mary?
Mary, you can go.
The reaction of who, sorry?
Just like the reaction of Julia Hartley-Brewer saying, "Oh my goodness, Nicola, what's happening in Scotland? What's happened to free speech?"
Well, I don't think they really understand what free speech is or how it's actually employed. So I believe that there are many areas where free speech is curtailed, and I personally think it's basic human decency not to protest during someone's funeral procession. And I think there are many instances where free speech is curtailed because of the nature of the event. For example, during court proceedings, you can't just stand up and say whatever you like. Or
Craig Murray is a good example, put in the jail for not saying the names of the Alex Salmond accusers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it was jigsaw identification. Yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
We'll never forget that.
Yes.
Most events you're not allowed to actually be in the event. Usually, protesters would be given restricted access, or they'd be cordoned off in a separate area or somewhere. because people understand that you don't just have people coming in and shouting things in the middle of a big event.
Yes.
But to protest at a family members following a funeral procession, I think lacks absolute human decency.
Well, that's class. But I think everyone's a free speech absolutist until, someone turns up with a placard saying "F you" at the granny's funeral. I mean, this is the thing. There are sadly limits to free speech, and it's quite interesting inversion we've had here, where the people who are normally for free speech, I kept myself one of those people and have fought for free speech online and for many years, I come up against this type of barrier. But the thing I see about it actually is that there was no curtailment of free speech. The person was able to make their speech.
That's
right?
True.
They made it, and they did the expression. What happens to them afterwards is a different matter. Now, some free speech absolutists will try and claim that free speech free speech comes with no consequences. There should be no consequence of free speech. That's nonsense, because the speech itself is made to have consequence, right? The person speaks at protest to have a consequence, right? To get attention or to get whatever it is they want, to get some kind of power. That's fair enough. And similarly, that there can be reaction in different ways. Now, whether that reaction is appropriate or not is a different matter. But the speech what happened. Now, there's an actual bigger issue in Scotland, because people can't even open their mouths in Scotland to criticise what's going on. Because if you're a business owner, for example, and you want to speak up against the SNP's administration, all right, or even if you're a non-political person, not a non-political person, you're a business that's not related to politics, you can't stand up. If you're most ordinary people can't stand up because they're scared of reprisals. That's what people said to us when we first started this. That's scary, your windows are going to get panned in and all this type of stuff. And that's the reality. So that's the real curtailment of free speech in Scotland. People who can't even speak up at all. And that's why we are standing up to some extent, and others are too as well. And, and I should say also on the other side of that, you have if you're a member of the In Club, then you can say what you like. Brian Cox, who can get away with coming out with ethnic nationalism and ridiculous slurs, been on Question Time, Anglophobic talk on Question Time. And if he was an English nationalist, no, he would never be able to get away with that. But on the stage again with Nicola Sturgeon last week, saying basically the same thing. And it's really, so they're allowed to speak. And we're allowed to speak like this moment, but the consequences are quite different from both sides of the speech.
Absolutely right. To me, the most important aspect of this for me was not the lone oddball who's going to speak out. You're always going to get that. You're always going to get somebody. The bigger the occasion and the wider the publicity, then the better for him. Like that 22-year-old who started screaming abuse at Prince Andrew and was thrown to the ground and taken away for his own safety. But the really disappointing thing was when journalists and MPs cannot wait to get in front of a microphone to say, well, I'm no Republican, but I defend to the death the right of Republicans. It's got nothing to do with republicanism, you fool. It's nothing whatever to do with that. It's about basic common decency. That's all it is. So it was very disappointing to see all this completely fake backing of free speech when, as you say, Mark, there is no such thing in Scotland. And as for Julia Hartley-Grewell, I almost made those.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. I think that they don't. A lot of these people don't have very nuanced thinking, to be honest. Not to say that I do, but they don't really think it through that much. And I think the people who are on the free speech side should actually, have a bit better understanding of what's going on here. Now, as Jamie said in the interview, the thing that was actually surprising about it was that there's so few of these people, and really shouldn't be giving them attention. And we did that on our Twitter page and so on, not give them the attention that they so desperately desire.
Right.
Did you know that the very best way to keep up with the podcast, no, it's not podcast, that's still in there, the very best way to keep up with the show is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've almost got 500 followers. We need to get 1,000. If you're watching it on YouTube now, or even if you're watching it on Facebook, please go to YouTube. After the show, I am going to YouTube. I'm going to subscribe. Everything helps. We need to get to 1,000. That would be great. Now we're coming up to the highlight of the week. Thank you for staying with us to this point. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay.
I get to this ready here, actually. Sorry. First of all, a big shout out to Alex Massey, who half of the Times Appeasement Division, who thought it was a good idea to put out this article really, like 3 hours after the Queen died. Is here, Queen's death will open a new front in battle for independence. Like, come on.
God, man,
It's
honestly.
just give it
No
a rest
decency.
for a little bit. That's not the way it should be done. Just
No.
leave that alone. Have some basic decency. Anyway, but my nomination, this is even worse actually. My nomination is for this guy called Sean Currie, who said in a widely publicised tweet that the Scottish government should hold Queen Elizabeth's body hostage in exchange for recognition of a unilateral declaration of Scottish independence.
My God.
Right, here it is here. The Queen dying in Scotland would be the perfect opportunity for the Scottish government to unilaterally declare independence and refuse to return her body until the UK recognises it. I mean, I think there's only two words for that. It's sick bastard. I mean, really. I mean, imagine. The Queen is not just the Queen. She's someone's your mother and grandmother and so on, and the family member and all this type of stuff. But just the idea that Scottish nationalists should do a raid on Balmoral and grab the body and hide it in a cupboard until Liz Truss gets on the telly and says, "Yes, we will accede to your demands. Give us the body back." I mean, it's just sick and it's insane as well. So I'm afraid he has to. Absolutely. Has to get that. Of course, he claimed it was a joke, but it doesn't read as a joke. And he must have a bit of a strange sense of humour if that's what he thinks is funny. Perhaps that's a level of comedy these days is not really very good. But yes, I know I should also mention he was a member of the anti-monarchist Greens, which he tried to hide as soon as people cottoned on to his tweet. Now, Mr. Currie, you're a vile human being. That's it. It's as simple as that. You're just a vile person. You're not a nice person. And like many of your compatriots, not nice people. You've got this belief in the planet Earth, but not any belief in basic human decency and compassion.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anyway, that was my Zimmer week. Next up, it's going to be Mary. Oh, sorry, do you want Bench to talk about that one? David,
No, that's I agree with you. I highlighted this on Twitter, and immediately after I shared this guy's tweet, he deleted it. So yeah, it just shows that there's no question. When these people, when we do highlight them, they do take notice. I'm not just saying that. I think
it was all over. I think many people noticed it before. You must have got to it late.
I think probably, yeah.
But this actually put it back on here. Here's the thing that notice here down the bottom: 1,086 likes.
There you go. How do you like that? There you go.
No, not very good at all. Coming up next, it will be Mary.
Mia, thanks. Who's going? Me or Mary?
Mary's going. Sorry.
Okay, I'm out of order, but I'll put up my little caption.
Oh, you're right.
My Zimmer of the week is Patrick Harvie, and I shall tell you why. He, as we all know, he is the co-leader of the Scottish Green Party and minister in Nicola Sturgeon's cabinet, who sadly and disgustingly used his tribute speech to the Queen to score political points. So while all the other Scottish political leaders were avoiding politics in their speeches, they were offering their condolences, talking about their respect for the Queen and sharing little personal anecdotes, including, I must say, Nicola Sturgeon. But Patrick Harvie, he used his tribute speech to push his Republican agenda and advocated for a change in how people treat the monarchy.
Yeah, I've got the clip here, or at least some part of it anyway. So let's see how it goes.
Mark.
People, a monarch stands as a symbol of the country. If this is true, then this is a moment more than one of personal loss for those we stand with in their grief. It's also a time to reflect on the change the Queen witnessed during such a long reign. When Princess Elizabeth of York became Queen Elizabeth II, the UK was still early in its recovery from a brutal world war and had begun laying the foundations of something extraordinary. A welfare state and a national health service to tackle the giant evils of the age. Nearly
Nothing to do with them, of course.
decades of declining inequality followed.
I mean, why is this appropriate?
The oath still refers to other countries as the possessions of an empire, and here at home, human rights and equality were distant ideas, with racist discrimination remaining legal.
Human rights and equality in the UK were distant ideas
because of their sexuality.
Nonsense.
Now we can look back and celebrate extraordinary progressive change, even as we must continue to defend what has been achieved.
Yeah, baby boxes.
There are those for whom the long reign of Elizabeth II, and indeed the institution of monarchy, represent continuity, stability, permanence. But in truth, the tide of progress cannot be halted. It feels slow as we live it day by day, but in time it is dramatic. So, Presiding Officer, as Charles III begins his reign, let us hope, indeed redouble our determination, that he will have the opportunity to witness change just as transformational and more. It is still needed.
You know what would be transformational change? You know, really getting rid of Patrick Harvie. Or actually, it wouldn't be transformational change. He does F all. You know, what has he done? He's basically wants to ban McDonald's. That's his big policy idea. Ban McDonald's and get us all walk to work. It's like, no, I don't think so. We're not going to do that. You know, he always looks like a stick up his arse. You know, he's just a prude. He's really just, you know, he's a scold, a modern day scold. Yeah. He's the Witchfinder General, and he's just a bore, and actually such a boring guy. It's just, you know, hopefully we'll see the end of him fairly soon. Sorry, Mary.
I was just going to say, you missed out a few words. So someone on social media had called him utterly classless, crass, and offensive.
Yeah, so I think that's...
There are many words that we could use to describe him. And someone else says, he's an absolute embarrassment to the Scottish Parliament and indeed the Scottish people.
Here. I don't know why they you know, let him on there to do that. It was just a real embarrassment. It's just not. It was not necessary. It could have been said in other ways. It could have been said in the newspaper or whatever. Just a real attention seeker as usual. You know, but do nothing attention seeker. Now you can like or dislike the monarchy or not, but you know, there's a time and place. Some people might say, "Well, that is the place. Where else are you going to do it?" But you know, it's just it's not good at all. That kind of thing. Right, coming up, it's going to be David's Zoomer.
Certainly is. My Zoomer of this week is Andrew Marr. Since leaving the BBC, ex-Maoist Andrew, who famously handed copies of Mao Zedong's Little Red Book to his school classmates when he was aged 11, what great fun he must have been as a kid. Andrew has been trying hard to restate his youthful revolutionary worldviews, presumably in an attempt to appear relevant. So on Monday, Marr appeared as one of the panellists in Andrew Neil's 90-minute dissection of the death of Queen Elizabeth and the potential impact on the country of her passing. And Marr spoke up throughout, and his most telling contribution was quite early on when he informed the panel and the viewers that he was not in fact a monarchist, but he was a queenist.
Right, just a big queen.
Exactly. So thanks for that. We're really glad you shared that with us. And his other contributions to the debate were similarly sour. And he talked about low points of the Queen's reign being when university students at Stirling shouted at her that time. What has that got to do with anything? I was just ridiculous. Anyway, finally, Joan Bakewell, who spoke wonderfully throughout, she actually mentioned with a lot of passion about the great blossoming that we've seen of culture in the second Elizabethan age. Andrew Neil picked up on this and said, "Yeah, right. Well, and it's much the same way as the first Elizabethan age." At which point, Andrew Marr chimed in with a quite unbelievable comment, which you may have. I don't know, have you got it here, Mark?
Okay, let's see. I've got it here.
Strengths of the Elizabethan age, I would say it's been defined by the blossoming of cultural expression at every level. Right through our society.
A bit like the first Elizabethan age.
Pardon?
A bit like the first Elizabethan age.
Indeed, in that respect, yes, we have seen the most amazing and continuing creativity.
With less burning of Catholics.
Yes.
So there you go. So Andrew Marr's contribution to the debate about the Elizabethan age was, let's hope there is less burning of Catholics. I mean, have you ever heard such nonsense? The other panel members were clearly taken aback, and Andrew Neil immediately moved on. To me, this was easily the most outrageously classless, ill-advised comment I've heard throughout the entirety of the time since the Queen's passing, and it's just typical of Andrew Marr, an embittered man, which is exactly how he comes across these days. So really, really dreadful. So he's my nomination for Zoomer of the Week, Andrew Marr.
Right. Okay. So we have Mary's going to decide because she's new here. So
yes.
Oh.
Cool.
Well, I would like to vote for Patrick Harvie.
Vote for your own. Come on.
I know, and I think that's the second time I've done that, actually. I'm sorry.
Come on,
but
that's not good.
well, okay, I'm going by the comments, and Patrick Harvie seemed to really strike a chord.
I think that's very true.
Viewers.
No, see, it's not just you that's deciding. It's the viewers of the show.
He's well deserving of the accolade this week.
So he's a horrible wee man, really. Yes, no fun at all, you know.
So I will show that now. It's Patrick Harvie. I think the other two were very deserving also, guys.
Yeah, well, every week there's a bunch of crazies come out. That's why we call it Zoomer of the Week. A big thank you to everyone who has said they were going to, has signed a petition. I saw it, we've seen the clip, it's in your chat messages there. Thank you very much. If you can do that, that would be great. If you can, we won't stop going on about this, but you have to. Please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As well, we will be back for another show next Wednesday, September 21st, at our usual time of 7 p.m. Thank you to everyone who's donated to the majority over the past couple of years, and especially to those of you who have donated to this podcast. You make it all worthwhile. No, actually, it's worthwhile to everyone who's involved, and it makes it worthwhile. It's really great. So I already said about subscription. So David,
yeah, and if you can, please make a donation so we can all collectively destroy the pretendy ref, because that's what we're here for, guys.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Mary, I think you're supposed to say something.
I was just going to say thank you, everyone, for your comments, and we'll see you again next week.
Nice.
Next Wednesday.
I just realised I didn't put a thought for the week, but I think basically rather than say something about that, I think we can all try to hope that we can in all of our lives perform some kind of duty that is perhaps bigger than us, and certainly appreciate those who do that, you know, whether you are for the monarchy or not, or for even a particular politician or not. Many people are doing their duty and doing it well for the betterment of all of us. We will be back again next Wednesday with another episode of The Majority Show. Please do tell your friends about us, and have a good night.
Thanks, guys. See you all next week.
Thank you. Have a great week.